In the winter of 1973, a thin envelope arrived at a small apartment in Cleveland, Ohio. Inside, it was a check for $3.17. Most people would have thrown it away, but the man who opened that envelope stared at it for a long time. His hands were slightly trembling, not because of the amount, but because of what it meant. He had earned money while sleeping, and that moment would begin a journey that would eventually turn a struggling factory worker into a quiet millionaire. His name was Daniel Mercer. A life built on hourly wages. Daniel Mercer was not born into wealth. He was born in 1946, just after World War II, into a working-class American family. His father worked at a steel plant, and his mother worked part-time at a grocery store. Like millions of Americans at that time, the family believed in one rule: work hard, work long hours, earn your paycheck. But Daniel noticed something strange even as a child. His father worked harder than almost anyone he knew, yet they were always struggling financially. When Daniel was 12 years old, he overheard a conversation that would stay in his mind forever. His father was speaking to a neighbor who owned a small apartment building. The neighbor said something Daniel had never heard before. "I only worked 10 hours this week. The apartments paid the rest." Daniel didn't understand what that meant, but he never forgot the sentence. The American economy in the 1970s. The 1970s were a complicated time in the United States. Inflation was rising, factories were closing, oil crises were shaking the economy. Millions of Americans depended entirely on their jobs. If they stopped working, the money stopped too. But quietly, in certain corners of the country, a small number of people were discovering something different. They were building income streams that worked without them. Not magic, not scams, just systems. And Daniel Mercer was about to discover one. The library discovery. In 1968, Daniel was working long shifts at a manufacturing plant. The work was exhausting. The pay was barely enough. One evening, while waiting for a bus after work, he stepped into the Cleveland Public Library to escape the cold. That decision changed everything. While walking through the finance section, he found an old book with a strange title: How to Make Your Money Work for You. The book explained a concept Daniel had never heard before: passive income. The author described how certain assets, stocks, rental properties, royalties, and businesses could generate income even when the owner was not working. Daniel read the book 3 times. At first, he thought it sounded impossible, but the examples were real. American investors had been doing this for decades, and suddenly Daniel realized something. His father had worked for 40 years, but his income had always depended on showing up every morning. If his father stopped working, the money stopped. But what if money could continue flowing, even when you weren't working? That idea refused to leave Daniel's mind. The first investment. Daniel didn't have much money. In 1970, he had saved just $400. For many people, that amount might seem small, but Daniel decided to do something different with it. He bought shares in a small American company that manufactured household appliances. He didn't buy the stock hoping the price would rise. He bought it because the company paid dividends. Dividends were payments companies made to shareholders from their profits. Daniel didn't fully understand the system yet, but he wanted to test something. Could money really produce more money? Months passed. Nothing happened. Then one day, that thin envelope arrived. The check inside was for $3.17. It was Daniel's first dividend payment. $3.17. To most people, it was meaningless. To Daniel, it was proof. The power of small streams. That tiny check sparked a new obsession. Daniel began studying everything he could find about passive income. He read about American investors who owned rental houses. He learned about musicians earning royalties from songs. He discovered authors earning income from books published years earlier. He even learned about farmers leasing their land to energy companies. All of these people shared one secret. They built assets. Assets that continued generating income long after the original work was done. Daniel began saving aggressively. Instead of buying a new car, he bought more dividend stocks. Instead of expensive vacations, he invested in companies that paid quarterly dividends. By 1975, he owned shares in 14 different companies. The checks arriving in his mailbox were still small, but something fascinating was happening. They were becoming more frequent. A turning point. In 1977, Daniel experienced the moment that changed everything. One summer month, he received dividend payments from 3 different companies. The total amount was $47.50. It wasn't a fortune, but it covered his electricity bill. For the first time in his life, one of his living expenses had been paid by an investment, not by his job. That realization was powerful. Daniel began thinking differently about money. Instead of asking, "How much can I earn?" he started asking, "How many income streams can I build?" The hidden strategy of wealth. Throughout American history, many wealthy families followed a simple rule: never depend on one source of income. Instead, they built multiple streams: real estate, stocks, royalties, businesses, licensing deals. By the late 1970s, Daniel had discovered this strategy, and he began applying it in a way that surprised even his closest friends. In 1979, Daniel bought his first rental property. It was a small duplex. The building needed repairs. Most investors avoided it, but Daniel saw something different.
The rent from one tenant would cover most of the mortgage. The rent from the second tenant would generate profit. And once the mortgage was paid off, the property could produce income for decades. He spent evenings repairing the property himself. It took almost a year, but when the building was finally rented, something remarkable happened. Daniel was earning monthly income without clocking in at the factory.
America's quiet passive income revolution. By the early 1980s, the United States was entering a new economic era. Technology was emerging, personal computers were appearing, and new types of passive income were quietly forming. Software, digital publishing, licensing, content. Daniel didn't realize it yet, but the small experiment he started with a $3.17 dividend check was leading him towards something far bigger. Something that would eventually allow him to leave his factory job forever. And something that would turn his quiet financial experiments into a fortune few people ever expected. But the most surprising part of Daniel Mercer's story was still ahead. Because in 1984, he would make a decision that would multiply his passive income in a way even he never imagined. And it would begin with a simple classified advertisement in a newspaper. The newspaper idea that created a passive income machine. By the early 1980s, Daniel Mercer had already discovered something most people around him still didn't understand. Money could work. Not just people. Money itself could work. His small portfolio of dividend stocks was slowly growing. His duplex rental property was producing steady monthly income. But Daniel knew something important. If he truly wanted financial freedom, he needed more than two income streams. He needed systems, something scalable, something that could grow without demanding all of his time. Ironically, the idea that would transform his life arrived in the most ordinary place imaginable, the classified section of a newspaper. The classified ad that sparked an idea. In 1984, Daniel was drinking coffee at a small diner before his shift at the factory. Like millions of Americans at the time, he picked up the morning newspaper and started reading the classified ads. Back then, before the internet, classified ads were the marketplace of America. People sold cars, furniture, houses, and services through tiny ads printed in newspapers. One particular ad caught Daniel's attention. It was extremely simple. It read, "Learn guitar at home, send $5 for a beginner lesson booklet." That was it. No fancy marketing, no large company behind it. Just a simple idea. Someone had written a small booklet and people were mailing money to receive it. Daniel stared at the ad for several minutes. Then a strange thought appeared in his mind. What if that person was selling hundreds of those booklets? Each one cost almost nothing to print, but every sale brought in money. And once the booklet was written, the creator didn't have to rewrite it again. It was a passive income product. Daniel suddenly realized something powerful. You didn't need a big company to build passive income. You just needed an asset people wanted. The small booklet experiment. That evening, Daniel started thinking about his own knowledge. What did he know well enough to teach others? At first, nothing came to mind, but then he realized something. Over the past decade, he had learned a lot about fixing small household problems, repairing leaking faucets, replacing door hinges, fixing broken electrical outlets, simple repairs that many homeowners struggled with. So Daniel decided to try something bold. He wrote a 24-page booklet called 25 Household Repairs Anyone Can Do. The booklet explained simple home fixes in clear language. Nothing complicated, just practical advice. Once the booklet was finished, Daniel printed 200 copies at a small print shop. Then he placed a classified advertisement in a regional newspaper. The ad cost him $38. It read, "Save hundreds on home repairs. Learn 25 simple fixes any homeowner can do. Send $6 to receive the guide." Daniel mailed the advertisement and waited. He expected nothing, but 2 weeks later something unexpected happened. The first envelope arrived. Inside was $6. Then another envelope arrived. Then another. Within a month, Daniel had received 47 orders. The booklet had paid for its printing cost and generated profit. But something even more interesting was happening. Daniel realized the booklet required almost no additional work. Once the copies were printed, the only task was mailing them. And eventually he hired a local teenager to handle the mailing for a few dollars per hour. Now Daniel had built something fascinating, a tiny passive income machine. The first real passive income system. Encouraged by the results, Daniel expanded the idea. He wrote a second booklet, then a third. Soon he had created a small collection of practical guides. Weekend home repair guide, simple plumbing fixes, basic electrical repairs for homeowners. Each booklet sold through classified ads. The system worked like this. People mailed money, Daniel mailed the guide. The cost to produce each booklet was low. The profit accumulated slowly but steadily. Within 2 years, the booklet business was generating around $600 per month. For some people, that might not seem like much, but remember something important. This income was not tied to Daniel's job. It arrived whether he worked overtime or not. It arrived even when he was sleeping. And that was the real power of passive income. The psychology shift. By the mid-1980s, Daniel was thinking very differently from the people around him. Most of his coworkers focused on one question: how can I earn a bigger paycheck? Daniel focused on a different question: how can I build another income stream? Instead of spending money on luxury items, he invested it into new assets, more dividend stocks, another rental property, and additional booklet products. Each new asset created a small stream of income, and when you combine those streams, something powerful happened. They formed a financial river.
America's quiet millionaires. Around this time, Daniel started reading books about American wealth. He discovered a fascinating pattern. Many wealthy individuals in the United States were not famous entrepreneurs. They were ordinary people who had quietly built multiple income streams over decades. Rental properties, dividend portfolios, royalties, licensing deals, small businesses that ran without their constant attention. These people didn't rely on a single paycheck. They relied on systems. Daniel realized he was slowly building the same structure. The snowball effect. By 1988, Daniel's financial life looked very different from 10 years earlier. Here were his income streams: factory salary, dividend stocks, rental property income, booklet sales through classified ads. None of them alone made him rich, but together they created something powerful: stability. If one income stream slowed down, the others continued. And the most exciting part was still ahead. Because in 1993, a technological shift was about to transform the entire world. A technology that would create opportunities for passive income far beyond newspaper ads and printed booklets. It was called the Internet. And Daniel Mercer was about to discover that the small guides he had been selling through classified ads could reach not just one city, but the entire world. The Internet changed everything. By the early 1990s, Daniel Mercer had already built something most people around him still couldn't understand: multiple income streams. Dividend checks arrived every quarter. Rental income came every month. And his small booklet business quietly mailed guides to homeowners across several states. But something massive was about to reshape the entire world. Something that would create more passive income opportunities than any generation before it: the Internet. At first, most Americans didn't take it seriously. In 1993, the Internet was slow, confusing, and mostly used by researchers and universities. Many people believed it would never become mainstream. But Daniel Mercer had learned something from years of studying passive income. Whenever a new system appears, new assets become possible, and assets create income. The first time Daniel heard about the Internet. One evening in 1994, Daniel visited his nephew Kevin, who was studying computer science at a university in Ohio. Kevin was excited. He had just connected his computer to something called the World Wide Web. Daniel watched as Kevin opened a strange-looking website. The page loaded slowly, very slowly. Lines of text appeared, then a few blurry images. But Kevin said something that caught Daniel's attention. Anyone can publish information here, and people anywhere in the world can see it. Daniel immediately thought about his booklet business. For years, he had relied on newspaper ads to sell his guides. But newspapers were local. The Internet was global. Suddenly, a strange idea appeared in his mind. What if the repair guides he sold through classified ads could be delivered through the Internet instead? No printing, no envelopes, no postage, just information, delivered instantly. The first digital experiment. In 1996, Daniel made one of the boldest decisions of his life. He invested $1,200 to build a simple website. At that time, this was not easy. There were no website builders, no drag-and-drop tools. Websites had to be coded manually. Kevin helped him design a basic website that contained his repair guides. Instead of mailing printed booklets, Daniel offered them as downloadable files. The price remained similar, about $8 per guide. Daniel wasn't sure if anyone would buy them. Most people were still unfamiliar with online payments. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. Then one day, something incredible appeared in his email. A notification. Someone had purchased a guide online. From Arizona. Daniel had never advertised in Arizona, yet someone had found his website and bought his guide. Without a newspaper, without an envelope, without postage. It was the first time Daniel truly understood the scale of the Internet. The power of digital passive income. Over the next 2 years, Daniel gradually moved all of his repair guides online. The difference was astonishing. Printing costs disappeared, shipping costs disappeared, and most importantly, the guides could now be sold unlimited times. One guide written years earlier could now generate income again and again. Daniel wasn't the only person discovering this opportunity. Across America, creators were beginning to sell online courses, digital books, software, music, photography. Each product shared one powerful characteristic. It could be created once and sold thousands of times. This was the true definition of passive income. The unexpected growth. By 1999, something remarkable happened. Daniel's online guide sales surpassed his factory salary. At first, he didn't believe it. He double-checked the numbers, then checked again. The website was generating about $2,700 per month. This was more money than he had ever earned from his job. But the most shocking part was this. The guides had been written years earlier. Daniel wasn't creating new products every day. The work had already been done. Now the assets were producing income on their own. Leaving the factory. In 2001, after more than 30 years of factory work, Daniel Mercer made a decision that once seemed impossible. He resigned. Not because he was tired, not because he disliked the job, but because he no longer needed it. His income now came from dividend stocks, rental properties, digital guide sales, royalties from licensing some of his content. The system he had slowly built over decades was finally working exactly as he had imagined. Money was flowing from multiple directions. Some months were stronger than others, but the structure was stable. Daniel had achieved something many people dream about: financial independence. However, the early 2000s brought a huge challenge. In 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. Hundreds of internet companies collapsed. Investors lost billions. Many websites disappeared overnight. Friends told Daniel the internet business was finished. But Daniel understood something important. Technology bubbles may rise and fall, but useful assets survive. His repair guides solved real problems. Homeowners still need help fixing leaking pipes and broken switches, and the internet remains the easiest place to find those solutions. Instead of disappearing, Daniel's website traffic slowly grew. More Americans were buying computers, more people were using search engines, and thousands of homeowners were discovering Daniel's simple guides. The rise of search engines. Around 2004, a major shift happened online. Search engines became extremely powerful. People could type a question and instantly find answers. Suddenly, Daniel's repair guides began appearing in search results. Traffic to his website increased dramatically, and with more visitors came more sales. Daniel realized something fascinating. The guides he wrote in the 1980s were now being discovered by people in California, Texas, Florida, and New York. Assets created decades earlier were still producing income. This was the ultimate power of passive income. Work once, benefit many times. The snowball becomes a river. By 2008, Daniel Mercer's financial situation had transformed completely. His income streams now looked like this: dividend stocks paying quarterly income, 3 rental properties generating monthly cash flow, digital guides selling online worldwide, a small licensing deal with a home improvement magazine that used some of his content. None of these streams required him to work full-time, but together they created something powerful: freedom. Daniel spent more time traveling across the United States. He visited national parks, he drove through small towns, he finally had time to enjoy the life he had worked for. Yet the most surprising moment of his journey was still waiting. Because in 1993, a young entrepreneur would discover Daniel's old website and make an offer that would change everything. An offer that would turn Daniel Mercer from a quiet investor into something few people expected: a millionaire. By 2012, Daniel Mercer was already living the life he once thought only wealthy business owners could experience. But if you saw him walking down the street in Cleveland, you would never guess it. He still wore simple clothes. He drove an old sedan. He lived in the same quiet neighborhood he had lived in for decades. To most people, Daniel looked like an ordinary retired factory worker. What they didn't see were the quiet income streams still flowing behind the scenes. Dividend checks arriving every quarter, rental payments landing in his bank account every month, and thousands of homeowners around the country still purchasing his repair guides online. Daniel didn't consider himself rich. He simply considered himself free. But something unexpected was about to happen that would reveal just how valuable his simple ideas had become. A millionaire.
The email that changed everything. One morning in 2012, Daniel opened his email and saw a message with the subject line, "Interest in purchasing your website." At first, he assumed it was spam, but the message was detailed and professional. It came from a small startup company based in Austin, Texas, that was building a network of home improvement websites. They had discovered Daniel's site through search engines. Despite its simple design, the site still attracted tens of thousands of visitors every month. People searching for solutions to small home repair problems kept finding Daniel's guides, and many of them were buying. The company asked a simple question: would Daniel consider selling the website? Daniel had never thought about selling it. For years, the site had simply been one of his income streams. But curiosity pushed him to reply. He asked them what they had in mind. The answer stunned him. The value of digital assets. The startup explained something fascinating. They weren't just interested in the website itself, they were interested in the content. Over the years, Daniel had written dozens of detailed repair guides. These guides answered questions millions of homeowners searched online every year. To the company, this content was extremely valuable. They believed that with modern design and marketing, the site could grow dramatically. So they made an offer. They were willing to purchase the website and its content for $2.8 million. Daniel stared at the number for several minutes. $2.8 million. For guides he had originally written on a typewriter decades earlier. Guides he once mailed in small envelopes through classified ads. The idea felt surreal. The decision. Daniel didn't immediately accept the offer. Instead, he spent weeks thinking about it. The website still generated steady monthly income. Selling it would end that income stream. But the offer represented something different. A chance to convert decades of small passive income into a single large financial asset. After consulting a financial advisor, Daniel made his decision. He sold the website. The deal closed later that year. Suddenly, the quiet factory worker who once celebrated a $3.17 dividend check had become a millionaire. The most surprising part of the story. When the sale became public within a few business circles, some people were shocked. How did this happen? Was he a tech genius? Did he build a startup? The truth was far simpler. Daniel Mercer had never created a Silicon Valley company. He never raised venture capital. He never appeared on television or business magazines. Instead, he followed a much quieter path. For over 40 years, he built assets. Small assets at first. Dividend stocks, rental properties, simple information products, digital content. Each one alone seemed modest, but together they created something extraordinary, a network of passive income streams. The mathematics of patience. Daniel often explained his philosophy in very simple terms. Most people chase fast money, but real wealth usually comes from slow systems. A single investment might not change your life, but multiple investments growing over decades create powerful momentum. This is known as the snowball effect. At the beginning, the snowball is tiny. It barely moves. But as it rolls forward, it gathers more snow. It grows larger. It moves faster. Eventually, it becomes impossible to stop. Daniel's first snowball had been that tiny $3.17 dividend check in 1973. Everything else followed from that moment. Life after the sale. After selling his website, Daniel didn't suddenly change his lifestyle. He continued living quietly. He invested a large portion of the money into diversified assets, dividend stocks, real estate funds, and new digital businesses. He also began mentoring young entrepreneurs who were interested in building passive income. Many of them asked the same question: how can someone build wealth today? Daniel always gave the same answer: the tools have changed, but the principles remain the same. The lessons of Daniel Mercer. The story of Daniel Mercer offers several powerful lessons for anyone interested in passive income. First, start small.
Daniel didn't begin with millions of dollars. He began with a few $100s invested in dividend stocks. Second, create assets. Assets are things that generate income even when you are not working. These can include investments, digital products, intellectual property, or rental property. Third, build multiple streams. Depending on a single income source is risky. Multiple streams create stability and growth. Fourth, be patient. Passive income rarely happens overnight, but over years and decades, it can grow into something extraordinary. Fifth, adapt to new technology. Daniel moved from printed booklets to digital downloads when the internet appeared. Each technological shift creates new passive income opportunities. And finally, think long-term. The most powerful wealth-building strategies often look slow at the beginning, but over time they become unstoppable. A quiet ending. In 2019, Daniel Mercer was invited to speak at a small financial independence conference. The audience expected a dramatic story, a flashy entrepreneur, a tech innovator. Instead, they saw a calm man in his 70s explaining how a $3 dividend check had changed his life. At the end of the talk, someone asked him a final question. If you could give one piece of advice to young people today, what would it be? Daniel smiled and answered, "Don't just work for money. Build things that make money work for you." The room went silent, because everyone understood something in that moment. Passive income isn't magic. It's simply the result of building systems that continue producing value long after the work is done. And sometimes the most powerful fortunes are built not with loud success, but with quiet patience.